My name is Madison. I am 27 years old, and I live in a small, simple apartment in the city. You'll never own property, Madison. You should stick to renting forever. It's just safer for people like you. My sister, Selena, leaned back in her chair, holding her wine glass. She said it with a smile, like she was giving me helpful advice instead of insulting me in front of everyone. I looked at my father at the head of the table. I waited for him to defend me. I waited for him to say, "That's not fair," or "Madison works hard." Instead, he nodded. "Your sister is right," he said, cutting his steak without looking up. "Real estate is a big responsibility. It is for people with real stability. You're just not built for that kind of pressure, honey." The table went quiet. My mother kept eating, pretending not to hear. They were all waiting for me to break. They were waiting for me to get upset or make an excuse, just like I always did. They liked seeing me as the little sister who couldn't keep up. But that night, I didn't break. I looked at Selena's confident face. I looked around the dining room of the beautiful house she was so proud of. They didn't know the truth. They didn't know that for the last 2 years, the money paying for this very house had come directly from my bank account. I took a sip of water to clear the lump in my throat. "Noted," I said quietly. Something inside me clicked shut. I was done being the invisible daughter. But before I tell you how everything flipped, like and subscribe, drop a comment. Where are you watching from? My name is Madison. I am 27 years old. I drove home from that dinner in silence. My hands were tight on the steering wheel. The streetlights blurred as I passed them, but I wasn't crying. I had stopped crying over my family a long time ago. Crying implies you are surprised by the pain. I was never surprised. I was just tired. To understand why my sister's comment about owning property cut so deep, you have to understand the house I grew up in. My parents didn't just live in a house, they performed in one. We lived in a sprawling 2-story colonial in a neighborhood where everyone knew everyone else's salary. Appearance was everything. My mother, Carol, was the kind of woman who vacuumed lines into the carpet and got upset if you stepped on them the wrong way. My father, Robert, was a corporate attorney who believed that your net worth was the only score that mattered in the game of life. And then there was Selena. Selena was 3 years older than me. From the moment she could walk, she was the star of the show. She wasn't just my big sister. She was the standard I was supposed to reach but never could. Selena had the loud personality. She had the bright smile that made adults want to give her things. In school, she got straight A's without seeming to try. She was captain of the debate team. She was prom queen. She was the daughter my parents had always wanted. I was Madison. I was quiet. I was average in school, mostly BS, a few A's. I liked reading in my room with the door closed. I didn't like being on stage. I didn't like bragging. To my parents, my quietness looked like weakness. My lack of desire to show off looked like a lack of ambition. They didn't know what to do with me, so they mostly ignored me. I remember the day Selena got into her top-choice university. My parents threw a party that cost more than my first car. There was a catered dinner, a tent in the backyard, and a speech by my father. "Selena is going places," Dad said, raising his glass of champagne. "She's a shark. She's going to eat the world alive." Everyone cheered. I stood in the corner holding a paper plate of potato salad. A neighbor, Mrs. Gable, leaned over to me. "And what are you up to, Madison?" "Still figuring things out." "I'm applying to state college," I said. Mrs. Gable smiled that pitying smile adults give when they are unimpressed. "Oh, that's sensible, good for you." That was the word that defined my life in my parents' eyes. Sensible, safe, boring. Selena was exceptional, I was sensible. After college, the gap between us seemed to widen. Selena got a high-powered job in marketing right out of the gate. She wore sharp blazers and clicked her heels on the floor when she walked. She talked about branding and synergy at the dinner table. My parents ate it up. They loved the buzzwords. They loved that she was working for a firm they had heard of. I took a different path. I got a job as an administrative assistant at a small property management firm. It wasn't glamorous. The pay wasn't great on paper. My office was a cubicle in the back with no window. When I told my parents about my job, my mom sighed. "Well," she said, "it's a start, Madison. Maybe you can work your way up to something more professional eventually." "I like it," I said. "I'm learning a lot." "I'm sure you are," Dad said, not looking up from his newspaper. "Just make sure you save your pennies. You don't have the kind of earning potential your sister has." They didn't ask what I was learning. They didn't ask about the business. They saw assistant, and assumed I was just answering phones and making coffee. They didn't know I was watching. I was listening. I was learning how buildings were bought, how leases were structured, and how value was created. But the real divide, the thing that truly cemented our roles in the family, happened 3 years ago. It was the year Selena bought her house. She was 28. She had just gotten a promotion. She announced she was buying a 3-bedroom house in a trendy, up-and-coming neighborhood. It was a beautiful place. Old brick, high ceilings, a big backyard. My parents were ecstatic. You would have thought she had won a Nobel Prize. The day she got the keys, the whole family went over for a grand tour. My mother brought a bottle of expensive wine. My father brought a set of heavy-duty tools, just in case. I walked through the empty rooms, trailing behind them. "Look at these floors," Mom squealed, her heels echoing on the hardwood. "Original oak, you just don't find this anymore." "Great investment, Selena," Dad said, tapping on a wall like he was inspecting a gold bar. "This neighborhood is going to skyrocket. You bought at the perfect time. Smart girl, very smart." Selena beamed. She looked like a queen surveying her kingdom. "I know, the mortgage is a stretch, but the bank loved my credit score. I'm going to redo the kitchen next year. Granite countertops, stainless steel, the works. We'll help," Mom promised instantly. "We can't let this place go to waste." Then, inevitably, the attention turned to me. We were standing in the master bedroom. It was huge, with a bay window overlooking the street. "So, Madison," Selena said, looking at me with that tight, sympathetic smile. "How is your apartment? Still in that complex?" I felt the heat rise in my cheeks. I lived in a clean, simple 1-bedroom apartment about 20 minutes away. It wasn't fancy. The carpet was beige industrial, and the appliances were white, not stainless steel. But it was mine. "It's fine," I said. "I like it, it's close to work." "Renting is just throwing money away, you know," Dad said, looking out the window. "You're paying someone else's mortgage. You really should try to follow your sister's lead. Even a small condo would be better than renting." "I'm saving," I said. It was the truth, but not in the way they thought. "Well, save faster," Selena laughed. "Prices aren't going down. If you wait too long, you'll be priced out of the market forever." "We just worry about you," Mom added, placing a hand on my shoulder. It felt heavy, like a burden. "Selena is set. She has equity now. She has a future. We just want you to have security too, Madison. We don't want you to struggle your whole life." Struggle. That was the narrative. Because I didn't wear designer clothes, I was struggling. Because I drove a 5-year-old Honda instead of a leased BMW, I was struggling. Because I rented an apartment instead of taking on a massive mortgage I couldn't actually afford, I was struggling. I didn't correct them. I learned a long time ago that correcting them only made me look defensive. If I said, "I have money," they would ask, "How much?" If I told them, they would judge how I spent it. If I said, "I'm happy," they wouldn't believe me because my happiness didn't look like theirs. So I played the role, the invisible daughter, the poor relation. I helped Selena move boxes that day. I scrubbed her new cabinets while she drank wine with Mom on the patio. I listened to them plan the housewarming party. "We should invite the Millers," Mom said. "They need to see how well you're doing." "Definitely," Selena agreed. "And maybe I shouldn't invite Madison's friends. I mean, I don't want them to feel uncomfortable. This is a grown-up house." I was in the kitchen, wiping down the counter. I heard every word. They thought I couldn't hear, or maybe they just didn't care. That was 3 years ago. For 3 years, I watched Selena parade that house around like a trophy. Every Thanksgiving, every Christmas, the conversation always came back to her renovations, her property value, her investment. And I sat there. I ate my turkey. I listened to Dad give me lectures on financial responsibility. "You need to build a credit history, Madison," he would say. "Have you looked into a secured credit card? I can help you apply." I had an 800 credit score. I had lines of credit with 2 major banks, but I just nodded. "Thanks, Dad, I'll look into it." "And stop buying coffee out," Mom would add. "That $5 a day adds up. That's why Selena could afford her down payment. She has discipline." I wanted to scream. I wanted to laugh. But I didn't. I went home to my sad apartment. I sat at my cheap kitchen table. And I opened my laptop. That was the part of my life they couldn't see. That was the part that belonged only to me. While they were obsessed with the appearance of wealth, I was obsessed with the mechanics of it. I didn't care about granite countertops or original oak floors unless they added rental value. I didn't care about living in a trendy neighborhood. I cared about buying in neighborhoods where the numbers made sense. I lived simply because I was pouring every single extra dollar I had into my business. I wore simple clothes because I didn't need to impress anyone. My car was reliable, and that was all I needed. My parents saw a woman who was falling behind. They saw a daughter who needed to be handled with kid gloves, who needed sensible advice. They didn't see the fire. They didn't see that while Selena was playing house, I was building an empire. But the hardest part wasn't the insults. It wasn't the lectures. The hardest part was the loneliness. It is a strange feeling to be surrounded by your family and feel completely unseen. To look at your mother and know she doesn't actually know you. She knows a version of you that she created in her head, a version that is small and needy. I tried, once or twice, to hint at the truth. About a year ago, I mentioned to my dad that I was looking at a multi-family property downtown. I didn't say I was buying it, I just said I was looking. Downtown, he scoffed. Madison, please, that's a rough area. And multifamily. That's for commercial investors. Stick to what you know, maybe look for a studio apartment in the suburbs, something manageable. I've done some research, I said gently. The cap rate is really good. He laughed, actually laughed. Cap rate. Honey, don't use words you don't understand. You heard someone say that on TV, didn't you? Real estate isn't a hobby. It's serious business. Leave the investing to the big boys. That was the moment I decided to never tell them until I was ready. If they were going to underestimate me, I was going to let them. I would use their underestimation as a shield. While they were busy looking down on me, they wouldn't notice what I was doing. They wouldn't ask questions. They wouldn't try to give me bad advice. So I became the invisible daughter. I showed up to dinners. I brought cheap wine because they expected it. I wore my old coat. I listened to Selena brag about her new backsplash. It cost $5,000, she told us one Easter, but it adds so much value. It's gorgeous, Mom gushed. You have such good taste, Selena. I looked at the backsplash. It was trendy, sure, but it didn't add $5,000 of value. It was a vanity project, but I kept my mouth shut. It looks nice, I said. Maybe one day, Selena said, patting my hand, you'll have a kitchen of your own to decorate. Don't give up hope. I won't, I said. The irony was suffocating, but I held onto my secret like a lifeline. It was the one thing they couldn't touch. It was the one thing they couldn't criticize because they didn't know it existed. My business was my escape. It was my proof that I wasn't who they said I was. Every time they made me feel small, I would check my bank balance. Every time they made me feel stupid, I would look at my spreadsheets. Every time they made me feel like a failure, I would drive past one of my buildings and think I own that. It was a lonely kind of power. But it was power nonetheless. I just didn't know that the dynamic was about to shift. I didn't know that the golden child was about to crack, and that I, the failure, the renter, the invisible one, would be the only one who could save her. And I certainly didn't know that saving her would be the biggest mistake I ever made. My family thought they knew me. They thought I was simple. They thought my life was small because I didn't talk about it at the dinner table. But silence isn't the same thing as emptiness. They never asked. That was the simple truth. If my father had ever asked, Madison, what did you actually do today? I might have told him. I might have told him that I didn't just answer phones at the property management firm anymore. I might have told him that I had quit that job 4 years ago to start my own LLC. But he never asked. He usually just asked, still keeping busy, with a tone that suggested he knew I wasn't. So I let them believe what they wanted. While they pictured me sitting in a cubicle filing papers, I was driving across the city in my beat-up Honda, running a real estate acquisitions business. My day didn't start at 9. It started at 5 in the morning. I would wake up, make coffee in my sad little kitchen, and open my laptop. The screen would light up with the dashboard of my life, a life my family couldn't even imagine. I wasn't just a landlord. I was an operator. I had spreadsheets tracking 17 different properties. 17. I had single-family homes in working-class neighborhoods. I had duplexes near the university. I had a fourplex just outside the city limits that I had bought for pennies, renovated with my own cash, and refinanced to pull my money back out. My parents obsessed over curb appeal and resale value. They treated houses like jewelry, something to show off. I treated houses like machines. A house was a box that generated cash. If you took care of the box, and you took care of the people inside the box, the money kept coming. I knew things my father, the high-priced lawyer, didn't know. I knew how to screen a tenant so you didn't end up with a nightmare. I knew that a credit score didn't tell you as much as a person's bank statements. I knew how to budget for a new roof, so it didn't bankrupt you when the winter storms hit. I knew exactly how much a gallon of paint cost, down to the cent. My phone was always buzzing. Madison, the hot water heater at 42nd Street is leaking. Madison, the tenant in Unit B is late again. Madison, the city inspector is here for the walkthrough. I handled it all. I negotiated with contractors who thought they could overcharge me because I was a woman. I stood in muddy basements with a flashlight, checking for mold. I sat in coffee shops analyzing market trends, looking for the next neighborhood that was about to pop. I was good at it. I was really, really good at it. My business account wasn't struggling, it was thriving. The cash flow from 17 units was substantial. After paying the mortgages, the taxes, the insurance, and the maintenance reserves, I was clearing more money in a month than Selena made in 3. But I never spent it on myself. I reinvested everything. I bought more units. I built a rainy day fund that could survive an apocalypse. I wanted freedom, not things. Living this double life was strange. It felt like being a superhero with a really boring alter ego. I remember one afternoon, I was at my parents' house for a barbecue. I was in the backyard, holding a plate of potato salad. My uncle was lecturing me about the economy. "It's a tough market out there, Madison," he said, chewing on a rib. "Hard for young people to get a foothold. You just keep your head down at work. Be grateful you have a paycheck." My phone vibrated in my pocket. It was a notification from my bank. A wire transfer had just cleared. I had just closed on property number 16. A check for $30,000. My closing fee and first month's profit had just hit my account. I felt the phone buzz against my leg. I looked at my uncle. "I will," I said. "I'm very grateful." I took a bite of potato salad. I wanted to scream. I wanted to pull out my phone and show him the balance. I wanted to say, "I just bought a building while you were eating that rib." But I didn't. Why? Because I knew what would happen. If I told them, the dynamic would change, but not in a good way. My father would try to take over. He would want to see my contracts. He would tell me I structured the LLC wrong. He would criticize my choice of neighborhoods. And my mother, she would start spending my money in her head. She would say things like, "Well, since Madison is doing so well, she can pay for the anniversary party." Or worse, they would say I got lucky. They would say someone helped me. They would refuse to believe that the quiet, average daughter did this all by herself. So I kept the secret. It was my armor. I drove my old car to my properties. I wore jeans and t-shirts. I let them think I was scraping by. It was safer that way. Until the day the golden child needed help. It happened 2 years ago. It was a Tuesday night around 11 p.m. I was in bed, reading a book on tax law because that's the kind of thrilling life I actually led, when my phone rang. It was Selena. Selena never called me late at night. Selena rarely called me at all unless she wanted to brag about something or needed a favor, like picking up her dry cleaning, because she was too busy crushing it at work. I picked up, expecting her to be drunk or high on her own success. "Hello, Madison." Her voice was small, broken. I sat up immediately. I had never heard my sister sound like that. Selena didn't do broken. Selena did loud, proud, and perfect. "What's wrong?" I asked. "Are you okay? Is it Mom and Dad?" "No," she choked out. "No, they're fine, it's me." She started sobbing. It was a messy, ugly sound. "Selena, breathe, what happened?" "I lost my job," she whispered. I paused. "What?" "They fired me, Madison. They let me go. They said they were restructuring, but they escorted me out of the building. They took my badge. I'm out." "Okay," I said, my brain already switching into problem-solving mode. "Okay, that sucks, but you're talented. You'll find something else. You have savings, right?" Silence. The silence stretched for 5 seconds, 10 seconds. "Selena," I asked, "you have savings, right?" "No," she wept. "What do you mean no? You make 6 figures. You talk about your portfolio all the time." "It's gone," she said. "It's all tied up in the house. The renovations, the furniture, the car lease. I have maybe $2,000 in my checking account. That's it." I felt a cold knot form in my stomach. The house my parents worshipped, the symbol of her success. "How much is your mortgage?" I asked. She hesitated. $3,200. $3,200 a month, I repeated. "Selena, that's insane. That's more than 50% of your take-home pay was." "I know," she screamed, her voice cracking. "I know, okay, I thought I'd get a raise. I thought it would be fine. But now, Madison, the payment is due in 3 days. I don't have it. If I miss a payment, it hits my credit. If I miss two, they start pre-foreclosure. I can't lose this house. I can't. Tell Mom and Dad, I said. They'll help you. No, her scream was so loud I had to pull the phone away from my ear. No, you can't tell them. You absolutely cannot tell them. Why not? They think you're perfect. They'll understand. That's exactly why I can't tell them, she cried. They're so proud of me. I'm the success story. If they find out I'm broke, if they find out I'm living paycheck to paycheck, it will kill them, and it will kill me. I can't see the look on Dad's face. I can't handle Mom's pity. Please, Madison, I'm begging you. She was hyperventilating. The golden child was crumbling right in front of me. What do you want me to do, Selena? I asked softly. Can you lend me the money? She asked. Her voice was trembling. Just for this month. Just $3,200. I'll pay you back as soon as I get a new job. I have interviews lined up. It'll just be one time. Please, you're the only one I can trust. I closed my eyes. I knew logically that this was a bad idea. Mixing money and family is always a disaster. But she was my sister. And for the first time in her life, she needed me. She wasn't looking down on me, she was looking up at me. And I had the money. $3,200 was a lot to most people. To my business, it was less than 1 month's cash flow from 2 units. I could write the check without blinking. Okay, I said. Really? She sounded shocked. You have that kind of money. I thought you were struggling. Even in her desperation, the insult was there. I have some savings, I said vaguely. I can cover it, but Selena, you have to fix this. You have to get a job. I will, she promised. I swear. Thank you, Madison. You're saving my life. I love you. I transferred the money that night. She paid her mortgage. The crisis was averted. 2 weeks later, she didn't have a job yet. 4 weeks later, the next mortgage payment was due. She called me again. Madison, the interview process is taking longer than I thought. I just need 1 more month. I swear this is the last time. I paid it. Then came month 3. Then month 4. She got a new job eventually, but it paid less than her old one. She didn't tell our parents that either. She pretended she was consulting for a boutique firm. I just need a little help to bridge the gap, she told me. Just until I get my commission checks. It became a routine. Every month, on the 28th, she would text me. Sometimes it was a long apology. Sometimes it was just a sad face emoji. I would log into my business account, the account labeled Blue Horizon Holdings LLC, and wire $3,200 to Selena's personal account. I became her safety net. I became the foundation that held up her fake life. For 2 years, do the math. $3,200 a month times 24 months. That's $76,800. I poured nearly $80,000 into my sister's house. I was practically a co-owner. I paid for the roof over her head. I paid for the walls that held her awards. And you know what the worst part was? She forgot. Not literally. She knew I was paying, but emotionally she forgot. At first she was humble, she was grateful. But as the months went on and the checks kept clearing, her entitlement returned. She started treating the money like her salary. She started treating me like her payroll department. She stopped saying thank you. She started saying, hey, can you send the transfer early? It's a holiday weekend. She went back to being the golden child. She started buying new clothes again. She went on a vacation to Cabo with her friends. How can you afford that? I asked her one day when she showed me the pictures. Oh, I put it on a credit card, she breezed. I needed a mental health break. The stress of the new job is too much. She was stressed. I was paying her mortgage while she drank margaritas on a beach and she was stressed. But I stayed silent. I was trapped in the lie with her. If I stopped paying, she would lose the house, the truth would come out, and somehow my family would blame me. They would say I let her fall. So I kept paying. And she kept pretending. She renovated her kitchen 6 months ago. She posted photos on Instagram. So blessed to finally create my dream kitchen. Number homeowner, number boss babe. I stared at the photo on my phone. I zoomed in on the marble countertops. I paid for those. Technically, she used her own money for the counter, but she only had her own money because I was paying the mortgage. Money is fungible. If I pay your rent, your paycheck is free for marble counters. I paid for the image she projected to the world. My parents saw the kitchen and bragged about it for weeks. Selena has such an eye for design, Mom said. She's doing so well. I sat there, biting my tongue until I tasted blood. I was the invisible daughter, funding the golden child's empire. I thought I could do it forever. I thought I could just keep the peace, pay the tax of being in this family, and go on with my life. But everyone has a breaking point. Mine came at a Sunday dinner, with a glass of wine and a smirk. It is a strange thing to watch someone else live a life that you are paying for. For the first few months, I told myself I was just helping my sister get back on her feet. It was temporary, it was an emergency. But as the months turned into a year, and then 2 years, the dynamic shifted into something much darker. Selena didn't just survive on my money, she flourished on it. Because she didn't have to worry about her $3,200 mortgage, her actual paycheck became disposable income. Suddenly, she had cash for everything she wanted. And because she was Selena, she didn't save that cash. She displayed it. It started with the small things. I went over to her house for coffee one Saturday morning. I parked my 2016 Honda Civic in the driveway. Right next to it sat a brand new, lease-fresh luxury SUV. It was white, shiny, and looked like it cost more than my entire college tuition. I stared at it. I felt a tightness in my chest. I walked inside. Selena was in the kitchen, making espresso with a machine that looked like a spaceship. "New car?" I asked, trying to keep my voice neutral. "Oh, that," she laughed, waving a hand. "Yeah, my old one was making a weird noise. Plus, the lease deal was too good to pass up. You have to project success to attract success, right? Project success." I wanted to say, "Selena, you are projecting success with my money. If you paid your own mortgage, you'd be driving a used sedan." But I didn't. I accepted the coffee. Then came the home improvements. Since she owned the house with the bank, and effectively with me, she was obsessed with increasing its value. One month, she decided the hardwood floors were too dark. "They make the space feel small," she complained to our mother. 2 weeks later, contractors were ripping them up. She installed wide plank French oak. It cost thousands. I knew exactly how much it cost because I worked in real estate. I knew the material cost. I knew the labor cost. And I knew that while she was writing the check for those floors, I was wiring $3,200 into her account to cover the roof over those floors. My parents, of course, were dazzled. "It opens up the whole room," Mom exclaimed during a visit. She walked around in her socks, admiring the grain. "It looks like a magazine, Selena. You really have a gift for this." "I just want it to be perfect," Selena said modestly. "I work hard, so I want my sanctuary to be beautiful. I work hard." The phrase grated on my nerves like sandpaper. It wasn't that she didn't work. She had a job, but she wasn't working hard enough to afford this life. She was living a subsidy. She was living a scholarship funded by the failure sister. The worst part was the social media. Selena lived her life on Instagram and Facebook. She posted photos of her Sunday brunch spreads with expensive champagne. She posted selfies in her home office with captions about the grind. Rise and grind. 6 a.m. start. Building the dream one day at a time. Number homeowner, number blessed, number independent woman. I would see these posts while I was sitting in my car outside a tenant's house, waiting for a plumber to show up. I would look at her hashtag number independent woman and feel a bitter laugh bubbling up in my throat. She wasn't independent. She was a dependent. I was claiming her on my emotional tax return every single month. But my silence had created a trap. I couldn't speak up now without looking petty. If I said something, I would be the jealous sister trying to tear her down. I would be the one ruining the family illusion, so I watched. I watched her buy designer handbags. I watched her host dinner parties where she served filet mignon. I watched her accept praise from our aunts and uncles about how well-settled she was. "Madison, you should take notes," my Aunt Linda said to me at Christmas. We were standing in Selena's living room, which was decorated with a 12-foot tree and professional ornaments. "Look at how Selena manages her household. It's so adult." "It's very nice," I said, clutching my drink. "I know you're still figuring things out," Aunt Linda whispered loudly. "But don't worry, not everyone blooms early. Maybe you'll meet a nice man who can help you get a house like this." I almost crushed the glass in my hand. "I have 17 houses like this," I wanted to scream. "I have 4 apartment buildings. I have a net worth that would make your head spin," but saying it felt dangerous. It felt like stepping off a cliff, so I just nodded. "Maybe," I said. My family's perception of us solidified into stone during those 2 years. Selena was the winner. She was the generous, successful, stylish daughter who had it all figured out. Madison was the loser. I was the quiet, mousy, sensible daughter who needed to be protected from her own lack of ambition. They treated Selena with respect. They asked her opinion on politics, on wine, on travel. They treated me with pity. They asked me if my car was running okay. They asked me if I had enough money for groceries. It was a perfectly constructed play, and we all knew our lines. Until the night Selena went off script. It was a Sunday in late October. The air was crisp, the kind of weather that usually made me feel energized. But as I pulled into my parents' driveway, I felt the familiar weight settle onto my shoulders. Sunday dinner, the weekly ritual where we pretended to be a happy family. I walked in, carrying a store-bought apple pie. "Hi, honey," Mom said, kissing my cheek. She smelled like roast chicken and expensive perfume. "Oh, store-bought, that's fine, I'm sure it's sweet." "I didn't have time to bake," I said. "Selena made a tiramisu from scratch," Mom said, turning back to the oven. "She's been cooking all afternoon. I don't know where she finds the energy with her career." I placed my pie on the counter. It looked sad in its plastic container next to the beautiful glass dish of tiramisu. We moved to the dining room. My father sat at the head of the table, carving the chicken. Selena sat to his right, the place of honor. I sat across from her. The conversation started as it always did. "Selena's week. My boss is putting me on the Johnson account," Selena said, taking a sip of red wine. "It's huge. I might have to travel to New York next month." "That's fantastic," Dad beamed. "New York, now that is the big leagues. Make sure you expense everything. Don't let them shortchange you." "Oh, I know how to handle them," Selena smiled. She looked beautiful. Her hair was perfect, her skin was glowing, she looked like money. "And Madison?" Dad asked, glancing at me briefly. "How's work, still at the management office?" "It's good," I said, cutting my chicken. "Busy. The market is moving fast." "The market," Dad chuckled. "Everyone's an expert on the market these days. I was reading in the journal that interest rates are ticking up. It's going to squeeze the renters hard." He looked at me pointedly. "You're still on a month-to-month lease, aren't you, Madison?" "Yes," I said. "Dangerous," he said, shaking his head. "If your landlord decides to sell, you're out on the street. You have no equity, no security." "I'm fine, Dad," I said. "I have a good relationship with the owner." "I am the owner," I thought. "I am the owner of my apartment and the whole building," but I kept eating. "You should really think about buying," Selena chimed in. Her voice was syrupy sweet. "I mean, even a starter home, just something to get your foot in the door." "I'm happy where I am," I said. "But are you?" Selena pressed. She leaned back in her chair, swirling her wine. "I mean, don't you want something that's yours? I can't imagine still having to ask a landlord for permission to paint a wall at your age." The table went quiet. It was a dig, a sharp one. "I don't mind," I said. "I just worry about you," Selena continued. She was smiling, but her eyes were cold. She was enjoying this. She liked being the advisor. She liked looking down from her high tower. "Renting is it's so temporary. It's for people who can't commit." "Selena," I said, my voice dropping an octave, "let's not do this." "Do what?" She looked innocent. "I'm just giving you advice. I'm your big sister. I want you to have what I have." I looked at her. I looked at the diamond stud earrings she was wearing. "I bought those. I paid the mortgage that freed up the cash for those." "I don't think you know what you're talking about," I said quietly. Selena laughed. It was a harsh, barking sound. "I don't know," she said. "Madison, I own a 3-bedroom home in the Heights. I have equity. I have a tangible asset. You have rent receipts." She leaned forward, her elbows on the table. And then she said it. The words that would burn the bridge forever. "Face it, Madison, you'll never own property. You're just not built for the risk. Stick to renting forever, it's safer for you." I froze, I waited. I waited for my mother to say, "Selena, that's rude." I waited for my father to say, "That's enough." But they didn't. My father nodded. He actually nodded. "She has a point, Madison," he said, wiping his mouth with a napkin. "Some people are owners and some people are renters. It's a mindset. You've always been a bit risk-averse. There's no shame in it. We just want you to be realistic." The silence that followed was deafening. I looked at the three of them. My sister, the leech who was secretly drowning in debt. My parents, the snobs who judged value based on appearance. They were so certain. They were so incredibly arrogant in their wrongness. Something inside me didn't just break. It evaporated. The desire to please them, the desire to fit in, the desire to keep the peace, it all turned to ash. I looked at Selena. She was smirking. She thought she had won. She thought she had put me in my place. She had no idea she had just signed her own eviction notice. I didn't scream. I didn't flip the table. I didn't cry. I carefully placed my fork and knife on the plate. Clink, clink. I took a sip of water. I swallowed the food that had turned to dust in my mouth. Noted, I said. My voice was steady. It was calm. It was the voice I used when I was evicting a tenant who had destroyed one of my properties. It was a business voice. Noted, Selena laughed. What does that mean? It means I heard you, I said. I stood up. Where are you going? Mom asked. We haven't had dessert, Selena's tiramisu. I'm full, I said. Thank you for dinner. I walked out of the dining room. I walked down the hallway. I picked up my purse. Madison, Dad called out. Don't be dramatic, sit down. I opened the front door and walked out into the cool night air. I got into my Honda. I started the engine. As I backed out of the driveway, I looked at the house one last time. I saw the warm glow of the dining room window. I saw them sitting there, probably shaking their heads about how sensitive I was. Probably talking about how I couldn't handle the truth. They were right about one thing. I couldn't handle the truth anymore. The truth was, I had been enabling a narcissist to abuse me. The truth was, I had been paying for the weapon my sister used to hit me. I drove home in silence. The road was dark. When I got to my apartment, I didn't turn on the TV. I didn't change into my pajamas. I walked straight to my desk. I opened my laptop. The blue light of the screen illuminated my face. I logged into my property management software. I saw the dashboard. Total units, 17 occupancy, 100% monthly revenue, $34,200. I looked at the numbers. They were real. They were mine. Then I opened my banking portal. I navigated to the Scheduled Transfers tab. There it was. Recurring transfer, $3,200 recipient. Selena Vance personal checking frequency. Monthly next transfer date. Oct 28th. Today was October 27th. The transfer was set to go out tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. I stared at the screen. Stick to renting forever, she had said. I moved my mouse. I clicked on the transfer. I clicked edit. Then I clicked delete. A confirmation box popped up. Are you sure you want to cancel this recurring transfer? I didn't hesitate. I didn't tremble. I clicked yes. The line disappeared from the screen. I sat back in my chair. The room was quiet. The only sound was the hum of the refrigerator. It was done. The faucet was turned off. The safety net was gone. I picked up my phone and dialed a number. It was late, but I knew she would answer. Hello, Janet's voice was sleepy. Janet was my property manager, the woman who handled the day-to-day operations of my 17 units so I could remain anonymous. Janet, it's Madison. Madison, is everything okay? It's 10 o'clock. Everything is fine, I said. I'm sorry to wake you, I just needed to give you a heads up. About what? I'm going to be acquiring a new property soon, I said. A single-family home in the Heights. It might be a foreclosure situation. I want you to be ready to move fast. Oh, sounds aggressive, Janet said, waking up a bit. It is, I said. I'm done being passive. I hung up the phone. I went to the window and looked out at the city lights. My sister thought I was weak. She was about to find out exactly how strong I was. She wanted a lesson in ownership. I was about to give her a masterclass. The morning after the dinner, I woke up differently. Usually, I woke up with a heavy feeling in my chest, the dread of being the disappointment of the family. I usually woke up feeling small. Today, I woke up feeling light. I sat up in bed and looked around my apartment. The sun was streaming through the cheap blinds. I heard the garbage truck outside. To anyone else, it was just a Monday morning. To me, it was the first day of my real life. I made coffee. I didn't rush. I sat at my kitchen table and opened my laptop again just to be sure. I logged into the bank. Status, canceled. The $3,200 transfer that was scheduled for this morning had not gone out. For the first time in 2 years, my money stayed in my account. I looked at the number at the bottom of the screen. My balance. It was substantial. It was the kind of number that meant I could retire tomorrow if I lived simply. I opened my property spreadsheet. Property 1, 3-bedroom north side. Rented. Property 2, duplex University District. Rented. Property 3, 4-plex downtown. Rented. I scrolled down. The list went on and on. 17 properties. 17 streams of income flowing into my river. I realized something as I stared at the screen. I hadn't just been lucky. I hadn't just saved pennies like my dad suggested. I had built a machine. I picked up my phone and called Janet again. We had spoken briefly last night, but I needed to be official. This was business now. Good morning, Madison, Janet answered. She sounded professional, awake. Morning, Janet. I want to confirm the directive I gave you last night regarding the personal transfer. It's done, Janet said. I put a stop on the standing order. No funds will leave the holding account for Selena Vance, was it? Yes, I said. Is there a reason for the change? Just for my records, Janet asked. I took a sip of coffee. Cost cutting, I said simply. The asset was non-performing. It was a liability with zero return on investment. I'm liquidating my emotional stake. Janet laughed dryly. Understood, we cut the losers and ride the winners, that's the policy. That's the policy, I agreed. I hung up. It was strange. I felt a phantom panic. Part of me was waiting for the sky to fall. Part of me was terrified of what would happen when Selena found out. But then I remembered the dinner. Stick to renting forever. I remembered my father nodding. I remembered the absolute certainty in their eyes that I was nothing. If I was nothing, then my money was nothing. And if my money was nothing, then Selena wouldn't miss it, right? I closed my laptop. I got dressed. I put on a blazer. I didn't go to a job that day. I went to my properties. I drove to my newest acquisition, a duplex I was renovating on the west side. I walked in and smelled sawdust and fresh paint. My contractor, Mike, was sanding the floors. Hey boss, he called out. Looking good in here, we should be ready for tenants by the 1st. Looks great, Mike, I said. I walked through the rooms. I touched the walls. I stomped on the floorboards. This was mine. I wasn't a renter. I wasn't a child. I was the one signing the checks. I was the one creating homes for families. For years, I had let my family's voice drown out my own reality. I stood in that empty room and made a promise to myself. No more hiding. If they wanted to see who I really was, they were going to see all of it. I checked my phone. It was noon. Usually by now, I would have received a text from Selena. A thanks sis, or a thumbs up emoji to acknowledge the transfer. Today, silence. She hadn't noticed yet. She probably didn't check her account. She just assumed the money would be there like magic, like gravity. I went about my day. I approved a budget for a new roof. I negotiated a lease renewal. I felt strong. 5 p.m. came, still silence. I went home, I made dinner, I watched a movie. I slept better that night than I had in years. The explosion happened on Tuesday. Banks can be slow. Sometimes a transfer takes 24 hours to show up, or not show up. Selena must have checked her balance on Tuesday morning to pay her mortgage. I was in the middle of a meeting with an insurance agent when my phone lit up. Selena, 3 missed calls I didn't answer. I let it go to voicemail. Then came the texts. Selena, hey, did you forget something? Selena, Madison, pick up. Selena, the transfer didn't go through. My account is negative, call me ASAP. I finished my meeting. I shook the agent's hand. I walked out to my car. I sat in the driver's seat and looked at the phone. It was buzzing again, I answered. Hello, Madison, she was screaming. Where have you been? I've been calling you for 2 hours. I was working, I said calmly. Working, doing what? Filing papers. She didn't wait for an answer. Look, something is wrong with the bank. The transfer didn't hit. I have the mortgage payment set to auto-pay today, and I just got an insufficient funds alert. You need to fix it. Now. She wasn't asking. She was ordering. She sounded annoyed, like I was a waitress who had brought her the wrong order. There's nothing wrong with the bank, I said. Silence. What? The bank is working fine, Selena. Then why isn't the money there? Her voice rose in pitch. Madison, stop playing games. I have a late fee if this doesn't clear by 5 p.m. Send the wire. No, I said. The word hung in the air between us. It was a small word, but it felt heavy. What did you say? I said no. I canceled the transfer. You what? She laughed, a nervous, confused sound. Is this a joke? Because it's not funny, I need that money. I know you need it, I said. That's the problem, you've needed it for 2 years. And for 2 years I've given it to you, but I'm done. Done? She sounded breathless. You can't be done, we have a deal. We don't have a deal, I said. I have been bailing you out. A deal implies 2 people bringing something to the table. You bring nothing but insults. Insults? Is this about Sunday? She groaned. Oh my God, Madison, grow up. You're cutting me off because of a joke at dinner. You're going to ruin my credit over a joke. It wasn't a joke, I said. You told me to stick to renting. You told me I wasn't built for ownership. You told me it was safer for me to stay small. I was trying to help you, she yelled. Well, now I'm helping you, I said. You want to be a big-shot homeowner, then pay for your home. You want to be the successful sister, then pay your own bills. It's time for you to live within your means, Selena. I can't, she shrieked. You know I can't. My mortgage is $3,000. My car is $800. I can't pay that on my salary. Then sell the house, I said. I can't sell the house. It's my house. Everyone knows it's my house. What will I tell people? Tell them the truth, I said. Or don't, it's not my problem anymore. You are a selfish, jealous little bitch, she hissed. The venom in her voice was pure. You're doing this because you're jealous of me. You've always been jealous. You want to see me fail. I don't want to see you fail, I said. I just refuse to pay for your success while you spit in my face. I'm telling Mom and Dad, she threatened. I smiled. I actually smiled. Go ahead, I said. I mean it, Madison. I'm going to tell them you promised to help me and then pulled the rug out. I'm going to tell them you're sabotaging me. They'll never forgive you. Tell them whatever you want, I said. Fine, she screamed. Family meeting, tonight, Mom and Dad's house. 7 p.m., be there or I swear to God you're dead to this family. I'll be there, I said. I hung up. My hands were shaking, but not from fear, from adrenaline. She had called the meeting. She had set the stage. She thought she was dragging me to a trial where I would be the defendant. She thought she could shame me into opening my wallet again. She didn't know I was bringing evidence. I drove to my office, my real office, a small commercial space I rented in the back of a business park. I went to the filing cabinet. I pulled out a thick, expandable folder. I started printing. I printed the deed to the property on 4th Street. I printed the deed to the duplex on Elm. I printed the purchase agreement for the fourplex. I printed my bank statements showing the cash reserves. I printed my tax returns for the last 3 years. And then I printed something else. I printed the transaction history of my transfers to Selena. 2 years of payments. $3,200. $3,200. $3,200. Total, $76,800. I organized the papers. I put them in the folder. It was heavy. It felt like a brick. I looked at the clock. It was 6 p.m. I went home and changed. I didn't wear my usual mousy clothes. I put on a suit. It was a sharp, navy blue suit that I usually only wore for meetings with bank executives. I put on heels. I put my hair up. I looked in the mirror. The woman staring back at me wasn't the invisible daughter. She wasn't the renter. She wasn't the failure. She was the CEO of Blue Horizon Holdings. I grabbed the folder. I drove to my parents' house. When I pulled up, I saw Selena's car in the driveway. My parents' cars were there too. The house was lit up. I walked to the front door. I didn't use my key. I rang the doorbell. It was a small act, but it mattered. I wasn't walking in as a child returning home. I was walking in as a visitor, as an equal. My mother opened the door. She looked stressed. Her face was tight. Madison, she said, her voice sharp. Get inside. Your sister is hysterical. I walked in. They were in the living room. Selena was sitting on the sofa, clutching a box of tissues, her eyes red and puffy. My father was pacing back and forth, looking furious. When I entered the room, the atmosphere snapped tight. There she is, Selena sobbed, pointing a finger at me. There's the person who is trying to ruin my life. My father stopped pacing. He turned to me. His face was red. Madison, he boomed. Sit down now. I didn't sit. I stood behind the armchair. I placed the folder on the table next to me. I'll stand, I said calmly. Don't you take that tone with me, Dad snapped. Selena has told us everything. She told us you agreed to help her with a small loan, and now you've pulled it out of spite. She's going to lose her house because of you. How could you be so cruel? A small loan, I asked. I looked at Selena. Is that what you told them? It was a loan, Selena cried. I was going to pay you back. When? I asked. You haven't paid me a cent in 2 years. 2 years, Mom gasped. She looked from me to Selena. What do you mean 2 years? She's lying, Selena shouted. It's only been a few months. She's trying to make me look bad. Madison, Dad said, his voice lowering to a growl. Fix this. I don't care what petty jealousy you have. You write your sister a check right now. We are a family. We support each other. If you have a little savings, you share it. You don't hoard it while your sister suffers. You want me to write a check? I asked. Yes, Dad said. And then you're going to apologize to her. I looked at them. They really believed it. They believed I was the villain. They believed I was holding back my little savings out of spite. I reached for the folder. I'm not writing a check, I said. But I am going to show you something. I don't want to see your excuses, Dad yelled. It's not an excuse, I said. I unzipped the folder. It's the truth. I took out the first stack of papers, the transaction history showing the $76,800 I had paid to Selena. I tossed it onto the coffee table. It landed with a heavy slap. That, I said, pointing to the stack, is the small loan I've given Selena. $76,800. Feel free to count it. The The room went silent. My father looked at the papers. He picked them up. His eyes scanned the columns. 76,000, he whispered. I paid her mortgage for 24 months, I said. Every single month, while she was renovating her kitchen. I paid for it. While she was buying that car, I paid for it. Selena stopped crying. She looked pale. And, I continued, reaching into the folder again, since you're so concerned about me renting. Since you think I'm not built for ownership. I pulled out the deeds. I tossed the first one on the table. 314 Oak Street, owned by Blue Horizon Holdings, that's me. I tossed the next one. 550 Maple Avenue, owned by me. I tossed the next one. The fourplex on River Road, owned by me. I kept throwing them down, one by one. The papers slid across the table, covering the magazines and the coasters. 17 properties, I said, my voice steady and hard. $4 million in real estate assets. 0 debt on the primary residences. Positive cash flow of $34,000 a month. I looked at my father. He was holding a deed, his mouth slightly open. He looked like he had been hit by a truck. I looked at my mother. She was staring at the table, her eyes wide. You said I would never own property, I said to Selena, who was now shrinking into the sofa cushions. You said I should stick to renting. You said I wasn't built for this. I leaned forward, placing my hands on the table. I don't just own property, Selena, I own the neighborhood. Now, I said, standing up straight and smoothing my blazer. Who wants to talk about financial responsibility? The silence in the living room was absolute. You could hear the hum of the refrigerator from the kitchen. You could hear the clock ticking on the wall. My father was holding the deed to the fourplex. His hands were shaking slightly. He was a lawyer. He knew what he was looking at. He knew what a warranty deed meant. He knew what unencumbered meant. Blue Horizon Holdings, he whispered. He looked up at me, his eyes wide and confused. I've heard of this company. I saw a sign on a building downtown last month. This is you. It's my LLC, I said. I filed the articles of organization 4 years ago. 4 years, Mom asked. Her voice was barely a squeak. But you work at the management office. You answer phones. I own the management office, I corrected her. I bought the previous owner out 3 years ago. I kept the desk in the back because I like to keep an eye on operations without tenants knowing I'm the owner. It makes negotiations easier. My mother sat down heavily on the sofa next to Selena. She looked like the wind had been knocked out of her. Why? She asked. Tears started to well up in her eyes. Why didn't you tell us? Why did you let us think? She trailed off. She couldn't finish the sentence. Why did you let us think you were a failure? Because you never asked, I said. I didn't say it with anger. I said it with a tired kind of honesty. I tried to tell you once, I said, looking at my dad. I told you I was looking at a multi-family property. You laughed at me. You told me to leave it to the big boys. You told me I didn't understand the word cap rate. Dad flinched. He remembered. I saw the memory hit him like a slap. And you, I said, turning to Mom. Every time I came over, you looked at my clothes, my car, my hair, and you sighed. You didn't see me. You saw a project that failed. You were so busy polishing Selena's pedestal that you didn't notice I was building the ground you were standing on. Selena, who had been shrinking into the corner of the sofa, suddenly sat up. The shock was wearing off, replaced by desperation. So you're rich, she spat out. You have $4 million in property and you're cutting me off over $3 grand. That makes it even worse. You're greedy. Selena, stop, Dad said. His voice was low, dangerous. No, Dad, look at her, Selena pointed at me. She's sitting on a gold mine and she watched me struggle. She let me beg, she's sick. I didn't let you beg, I said. I saved you for 2 years. I paid for this fantasy life you're living. I paid for the granite counters you bragged about. I paid for the trips. But the problem is, you started believing your own lie. You started believing you were better than me because you lived in a house I was paying for. I pointed to the stack of bank statements on the table. That's $76,000, Selena. I don't want it back. Consider it a gift. Consider it the price of my freedom. But the bank closes tomorrow. No more wires. No more bailouts. Selena looked at Dad, waiting for him to defend her, waiting for him to yell at me for being selfish. But Dad wasn't looking at her. He was looking at the papers. He was looking at the numbers. He was a man who respected success. He worshipped money. And for the first time in his life, he realized he had bet on the wrong horse. He looked at Selena. He saw the tears, the designer clothes she couldn't afford, the panic. Then he looked at me. He saw the suit. He saw the posture. He saw the portfolio. 17 properties, Dad muttered. And you did this alone. Completely alone, I said. No handouts, no loans from family. Just work. Dad slowly set the papers down. He took off his glasses and rubbed his eyes. He looked old suddenly. We owe you an apology, he said quietly. Selina gasped. Dad, shut up, Selina, he snapped. He didn't shout, but the command was absolute. Your sister is right. You've been lying to us, and we've been blind. He stood up and walked over to me. He looked at me for a long time. It wasn't a look of love, exactly. It was a look of respect, fear even. I underestimated you, Madison, he said. I made a mistake. You made a lot of mistakes, I said. I know, he nodded. What happens now? Now, I said, picking up my purse, I go home. I have a meeting with a contractor at 7 a.m. I have work to do. And what about me? Selina wailed. What about my house? I stopped at the door. I looked back at her. I didn't feel hate anymore. I just felt pity. You have 30 days before the bank sends the foreclosure notice, I said. I suggest you call a realtor tomorrow. If you sell now, you might walk away with a little cash. If you wait, you'll lose everything. I can't sell, she cried. It's my home. It's a building, Selina, I said. And you can't afford it. Welcome to the real world. I walked out the door. I walked to my car. The night air felt amazing. I didn't wait for them to chase me. I didn't wait for a hug. I didn't need it anymore. I had walked in there hoping they would see me, and they did. They saw me, and I saw them, and that was enough. The next 30 days were chaotic, but not for me. For me, they were peaceful. I focused on my business. I closed on the foreclosure in the Heights, ironically, just 3 streets over from Selina's house. I started the renovations. Selina, however, went through the 5 stages of grief in public. First, she was in denial. She posted on Facebook that she was thinking of downsizing to travel more. Then came anger. She sent me long, nasty texts at 2 a.m. calling me a traitor. I didn't reply, then bargaining. She asked Dad to pay her mortgage. Dad, to his credit, said no. He told her it was time to grow up. Then depression. She went silent for a week. Finally, acceptance. 3 weeks after the family meeting, my phone rang. It was Selina. Madison, her voice was different. It wasn't the golden child voice. It wasn't the frantic, entitled voice. It was just her. Hi, Selina, I said. I signed the listing agreement today, she said. She sounded exhausted. The realtor is putting the sign up tomorrow. That's the right move, I said gently. I don't know what to do, she admitted, her voice cracking. I don't know how to pack. I have so much stuff. I'm overwhelmed. I looked at my schedule. I had a million things to do, but she was my sister, and she was finally telling the truth. I'll come over on Saturday, I said. I'll bring boxes. You will, she sounded shocked. After everything I said. I'm not bringing money, I warned her. I'm bringing boxes and tape and labor. That's all I need, she whispered. Thank you. That Saturday, I went to her house. It was strange to be there. The dream house felt different now. It felt like a stage set that was being dismantled. We packed in silence for a while. I wrapped her expensive dishes in newspaper. She folded her designer clothes into cardboard boxes. Around noon, we sat on the floor of the living room, the beautiful French oak floor I had paid for eating pizza. I'm sorry, Selina said. She didn't look at me. She looked at a slice of pepperoni. I know, I said. I was jealous, she admitted. Not of the money. I didn't know about the money. I was jealous that you didn't seem to care what people thought. I spent my whole life trying to impress Mom and Dad. Every grade, every job, this house. It was all for them. You just existed. You seemed free, and I hated you for it. It was the most honest thing she had ever said. I wasn't free, I said. I was hiding, but I'm free now. She looked at me. You're really the landlord of the whole neighborhood. Pretty much, I smiled. She laughed. It was a weak laugh, but it was real. God, I told you to stick to renting. I must have sounded like such an idiot. You did, I agreed. We laughed together. It wasn't a perfect moment. It didn't fix 20 years of history, but it was a start. Selina sold the house. She broke even barely. She moved into a 2-bedroom apartment. It was nice. It was simple. It was affordable. She kept her job. She started budgeting. She asked me for help setting up a spreadsheet, not for money, but for advice on how to track her expenses. I helped her. My relationship with my parents changed, too. Sunday dinners resumed after a month. The dynamic was awkward at first. My mother tried too hard. She complimented my blazer. She asked me about the market. So, Madison, Dad asked one night, pouring me a glass of the good wine usually reserved for him. What's your take on commercial zoning in the East District? I have a client looking to build. He was asking my professional opinion. He wasn't talking down to me. He was talking to me peer-to-peer. I wouldn't build there yet, I said, taking a sip. The infrastructure isn't ready. I'd wait 2 years. He nodded, listening intently. Interesting, I'll tell him. It felt good. It felt validating. But I realized something important. I didn't need his validation anymore. When he nodded at me, it didn't fill a hole in my heart. The hole was already filled. I had filled it myself, brick by brick, deal by deal, year by year. I still drive my Honda. I still live in a modest place, though I bought a nice house for myself a few months ago, cash of course. I don't post it on Instagram. I don't need the likes. Selena comes over sometimes. We drink wine on my porch. She complains about her landlord. He's such a pain, she says. He won't fix the disposal. Check your lease, I tell her. Clause 4, Section B, tenant responsibility for minor repairs. She rolls her eyes. You're the worst. I'm the best, I say, and we smile. I'm not the invisible daughter anymore. I'm not the bank either. I'm just Madison. I own my business. I own my choices. And for the first time in my life, I own my story. That is the only property that truly matters.